So this is eighth lecture, and today we will be doing Bayes theorem. So in our childhood, we first learn arithmetic and then algebra. An example of an arithmetic sum is what you get if you add 3 to 7. The answer is 10. This is easy. We learn this in lower standards. After a few days, we learn to answer the opposite question. What do you have to add to 7 to get 10? One has to use algebra to solve this. Assume the unknown quantity as x to get the equation x plus 7 is equals to 10, and then by some algebraic means reach to the answer. We often see an easy problem can yield a much difficult opposite problem. For example, you can easily square a number, but it is not that easy to find the square root of the same. To deal with similar problems in probability, we start with a few examples. Follow closely. This is very interesting. Consider the case of an multiple choice examination. From the logistical point of view, this is very practical. The evaluators are happy because the process of checking the scripts is easy. Also, the students are happy because they can even reach the right answer by guessing. Now, an evaluator does not know how a given correct answer has been chosen, whether with knowledge or by guessing. For her, the evaluator, it is a head-tail situation. It might seem intuitive that the evaluator would award full marks to every correct answer she gets, but there is a problem. A correct answer does not necessarily mean that the student has the knowledge for the question. So here also we need to walk through the reverse path. An evaluator must seek for the amount of knowledge the student possesses by removing the guess factor from a given answer. We can formulate the problem in the following way. So knowledge and guess together is the given answer. The job of an evaluator is to find out the following, the knowledge. So given answer, from the given answer, we should subtract the guess factor. Obviously, the plus and minus signs used here are for general purpose, a purpose for general understanding. We are not adding or subtracting numbers, so we need different tools. Bayes theorem helps us here. We can represent the whole scenario as in the following diagram. A student knows, hence gives the correct answer, guesses the correct answer. So for a student, there are two paths to reach to the correct answer: by knowing the answer or by guessing the answer. Fine. The evaluator does not know whether the student knows or guesses the answer. Okay, you are here, the evaluator is sitting at here with the correct answer. She doesn't know whether the student knows came from this way or this way. She wants to award marks to the student only for this way and disregard this way. So how to do that? What she sees is the correct answer is the given answer. Now a correct answer can be obtained in the following ways. Knows, hence the correct answer, does not know but guesses the correct answer. The evaluator is concerned only about the first path. To, to find that, we proceed in the following fashion. Follow closely. What is the probability of a correct answer if the student guesses? If there are 4 answer options to the question, then it is 1 by 4. If the student guesses, can we say that probability of correct answer is equals to 1 by 4? No, because that is true only in case of guessing. In case of knowing the answer, in case of hence the proper statement is correct answer given the student is guessing is 1 by 4. Otherwise, let us put the probabilities into the diagram. What is the probability of getting the correct answer if the student knows? Obviously 1. Okay, if the student knows the correct answer, then it definitely marks the correct answer. Hence, we draw the diagram with new information as this one. Student knows, hence the correct answer. After knowing, the probability of correct answer is 1 by 1, complete 1, full probability. Guesses, and in that case, getting the correct answer is probability is 1 by 4. Okay, now look at the first two arrows. We need probabilities for them as well. So this is something we know, how much student knows, how much student guesses. This is something we want to find out. So we need probabilities for that as well. Now this depends on the toughness of the question. Is harder the question is, smaller is the probability for a student knowing the answer, and easier the question is, greater is the probability of the same. Let us proceed with a general setup. Let the probability of a student knowing the answer be P. Then we get the following diagram. Student knows the answer with P probability, does not know the answer, guesses at the 1 minus P probability. So knows and hence gives the correct answer with 1 probability, 1 minus P hence guesses and gives the correct answer with 1/4 probability. There are two paths to reach to the correct answer. The probability of top path is P times 1 and the bottom path is 1 minus P times 1/4. Hence, probability of correct answer is P times 1 plus 1 minus P times 1/4, that is 1/4 plus 3/4 of P. P times 1 plus 1 minus P times 1/4. That is this one. 1/4 plus 1/4, 1/4 plus 3/4 of P, where the contribution from the top path is P. Hence, the conditional probability that a student has the knowledge when she has given the correct answer is probability of knowledge given the correct answer is probability of knowledge, that is P, and over 1/4 plus 3/4 of P. Now, if this means a little confusing, let us take the familiar approach of mathematical formulation. For that, we need to keep the following things in mind. If A, B are two events with non-zero probabilities, then probability of A intersection B can be written in following two ways. Probability A intersection B is probability A times probability B given A, and at the same time, probability B times probability A given B. Okay, we have assumed that none of them have zero probability. If A, B are any two events, then B can be written as disjoint union of the following two events. This thing we have seen yesterday as well. B is equal to portion of B common with A and portion of B common with, not common with A, that is common with A complement. Now, in our example, we'll take A as this event that student has the knowledge and B as the event of getting the correct answer. Then clearly, A complement will denote the event of guessing or not knowing the answer. From this slide, figure 3 will transform into, so this thing will transform to this one. Student, to correct answer, the knowing part is A, event A, guessing part is A complement. So this is probability A over here, and this is B giving the correct answer. So this is probability B given A, getting the correct answer given the student knows, and this is probability B given A complement, getting the correct answer, knowing, not knowing, the guessing the correct answer. Okay. Now let us proceed systematically with the following steps. Step 1. Suppose the student has given the correct answer. Now, that can happen in two ways, by knowing the answer or by guessing. So B is equals to A intersection B by knowing or not knowing, guessing. Okay. So whatever we have done so far, we are just mathematically doing it. All right. Sometimes this generalization process takes of the interpretation needs to be done in the real world. and things get smoother. You do mathematically whatever is allowed for you to do mathematically, you keep on doing that, and you are spared from the interpretation of the real world, complicated interpretation of the real world. So you can, mathematics, use mathematics just like a tool. Okay, so that is what we are doing over here. Okay, fine. Observe that the events on the right are disjoint. These two are disjoint events. We have already seen that. Taking probabilities of both sides, we get probability of B is probability, sum of these probabilities. Fine. We know probability of A intersection B is this one, probability A times probability B given A, and A complement intersection B is probability of A complement times probability of B given A complement. Fine. Therefore, probability B is equal to probability of, so probability B was probability A intersection B, so that is this one, plus probability A complement intersection B, that is this one. Fine. We need to find probability A given B, given the correct answer, having the knowledge. That is what we need to find out, which equals to probability A given A intersection B over probability B. Hence, now we have all these things. Hence, probability A given B is probability A times probability B given A over probability A, that is probability B is this one, probability A times probability B given A plus probability A complement times probability B given A complement. Exercise. Suppose the student has given a wrong answer. You are asked to find out what is the conditional probability of her to know the answer. Of course, the required probability must be 0. Okay, if somebody knows, then the student will never give the wrong answer. Now, you have learned two techniques to find the answer, one by the diagram and other by the mathematical formulation. Apply both the methods to check that the required probability is indeed 0. You know that an MCQ examination comes with negative marking system. The rationale behind that is the same. One should award marks not merely on the basis of correct answer or wrong answer, but on the basis of probability of knowledge given the correct answer and probability of knowledge given the wrong answer. That is, over the awarding scheme, 1 mark for correct answer, 0 mark for wrong answer, the following scheme is better. 4p over 1 plus 3p for correct answer and 0 for wrong answer. So that is the probability of knowledge given the correct answer. That was the thing, 4p over 1 plus 3p, where p is the toughness of the question and 0 for wrong answer. Okay. Notice that here marks awarded for a correct answer is reduced from the intuitive marking of 1 to remove the guess factor. The amount of reduction depends depends on the toughness of the question. So this part is something smaller than 1. Okay, so this is 3p, this is 4p, this is 1p more than 3p, but it is plus 1 is added here, so this part is definitely bigger than this one. Clear? The denominator is bigger than this one because p is a probability and hence it is smaller than 1. That is why. Yes, marks are awarded for correct answer is reduced from the intuitive marking of 1 to remove the guess factor. The amount of reduction depends on the toughness of the question. From the fact that the function x going to this one is increasing in 0, 1, probabilities are lie within 0, 1, so that is considering in 0, 1, we see that for a higher p, that is for an easy question, the students get awarded with a higher mark, and for a smaller p, that is for a tough question, she is awarded with less marks. Okay, so x going to 4x over 1 plus 3x is increased. 4x divided by 1 plus 3x, 0 to 1. So this is an increasing function. So that means for higher p, student is awarded with higher mark, and for smaller p, she is awarded with less marks. Now this system is so counterintuitive. Obviously, a student knows is getting less marks for giving correct answer to a tough question, right? So P is smaller for a tougher question. So that means a student is getting less marks for giving a correct answer to a tough question. That to tackle this, people have introduced the concept of negative marking. That is full marks for the correct answer, negative marking for the wrong answer. And the amount of negative marking again depends on the toughness of the question. That is, for an easy question, more negative marking, and for a tough question, less negative marking. In most of the examinations, the toughness or the easiness of all questions remain a constant. So it is possible to declare a common negative marking scheme for all the questions. Now, the second example. Suppose you are asked to count the number of trees in a forest. Now, it is practically impossible to count all the trees, so you need to approximate. Let us divide the whole forest area into smaller portions. Then we randomly choose a portion and count the number of trees there. Afterwards, multiply the number of trees counted on the randomly chosen portion with the total number of portions and get an approximation of the required number. Okay, suppose you have got an area there and you divide the area into smaller portions and you count the area trees in a few of them, get the average and multiply that average with the total number of slots you have generated thus. Okay, that is your approximation. Okay, concentrate here once again. Here the discussion start. These two are the examples. Here the discussion start. The discussions on these examples serve as a standard scheme for a number of problems we face in real life. If we want to measure any natural attribute quantitatively, randomness comes into picture in two stages. First round is for the natural randomness, whereas the second round of randomness is there because of our inevitable inefficiency to measure the attributes without error. In the example of MCQ, the knowledge of the students is the natural randomness, whereas our measuring technique was flawed because a student can also guess the correct answer. In example 2, number of trees in a forest is a random quantity, whereas our random choice of a small portion counts as the second round of randomness. Another example can be thought of as to say whether a tumor can lead to cancer. There is a fixed probability that a tumor will lead to cancer, which comes from its natural randomness. But the doctor is diagnosing the patient with respect to available test results, and those are not perfect. This is the second round of randomness. In these cases, people are interested only in the natural randomness. Of course, the second round of randomness is just an extra hazard we cannot help but to occur and need to get rid of. Bayes' theorem helps in that. This theorem is so effective and popular that a separate branch of statistics, namely Bayesian statistics, has evolved from there. Anyway, the main essence of Bayes' theorem can be stated like this. There will be two rounds of randomness. What has happened after these two rounds of randomness is known. With that knowledge, one requires to find out what had happened after the first round of randomness. The version of the theorem we are going to prove has its reference in the following figure. There are three ways I have shown from here to reach at this point. So there are three ways, A1, A2, A3 with respective probabilities, probability A1, probability A2, probability A3, and there are these probabilities, probability of B given A1, probability of B given A2, probability of B given A3, and then we want to go back. Here, after the first round of randomness, n types of events, that is A1, A2, A2 up to AN are possible. In this figure, we have considered n equal to 3. In the example of an MCQ, n was 2. A1 or A, let us call, stood for knowledge, where A2 or A complement denoted guess. These AIs are the only possible outcomes. That is, AIs are mutually exhaustive. Also, no two AI and AJ can occur together. In the MCQ example, a student cannot know and guess an answer simultaneously. That is, AIs are mutually exclusive. Now, after the second round of randomness, we know that the event B has occurred. In the MCQ example, B was the choice that correct answer was chosen. Now, to find the probability of a particular event AK, which happened after the first round of randomness, is to find probability AK given B. To find this, we approach the same way as in the example 1. Same way in the example 1. This entire process, what we did over here. There are n many paths to reach B. Out of them, we are concerned about the chosen kth path. In that last figure, the probability of the top path is probability A1 times probability B given A1. Now we can reach B in total 3 ways. So the total probability of B is this one. Probability B is A1 times B given A1, A2 times B given A2, A3 times B given A3. Hence, probability A1 given B by conditional probability is this. A1 given B is probability A1 times B given A1 over this one. After all these discussions and motivations, we now formally state and prove Bayes theorem. And this you have seen multiple times. We do not need to bother about this proofs things.